Hey, it's Mike. Let's talk about Reaper. In today's episode, we'll be looking at creating sweet additions like this
I'm slowing down. Everything is
in post to add a little something extra to your productions. Let's take a look. The project I've got open is a song called Headset by Kinda Mad. I'll leave a link in the description so you can check them out on social media. I also recently streamed the guitar tracking for this project. Check the link above. Let's take a listen to a bit of the song so we can hear this effect in context, then we'll delete and recreate the effect. We'll start back at the chorus before the interlude and subsequent bridge. Once we get to the bridge, Colton sings a line that says, "Things are getting faster, I'm slowing down." I thought it would be nice to create an effect that accentuates the "I'm slowing down." So once again, let's go back to the middle of the preceding chorus and take a listen to this in context, and then we'll remove and recreate the effect.
It's just the same ball and blockchain. Things are getting faster. I'm slowing down. Everything is heavier. Stuck in a crowd. Things are getting faster. I'm slowing down. Things are getting faster, 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 faster. Plug in, let's connect. You love it, it's a wreck. It feels like something, but it's just the same ball and blockchain.
Now I realize I played a little bit past what we were going to listen to, but I'm really enjoying working on this song. So we'll go back to our bridge and get started. I'll need to increase the height of my vocals track so we can see what we're working with, and you can see that I've already created a second track below that called Vocal Warp. I'll increase that as well and delete what I've currently got there. I'll also need to remove the automation item that I've got there that controls the pan. And let's get rid of that pan envelope altogether. Now I've got a clean slate and a blank track here. I'll solo my vocals for a moment, and let's see if we can find the part that we want to work with.
Things are getting faster. I'm slowing down.
Alright, so I'm slowing down starts right around measure 72. I'll need to take a portion of this and add it onto my second track to create the effect. I'd like to use razor editing for this, so I'll disable my snapping, and I will hold Alt on the keyboard and right-click and drag to create a razor edit around the portion that I like. You can see now that I've got a dotted line around the section that I drew the box around, and my cursor is also turned into a razor. That indicates that I've created a razor edit from that section. Now at this point I'd like to create a copy of this and leave the original intact, so I'll hold Control on the keyboard and left-click and drag down to the lower track and release. Now that that's got my copy in place, I can click outside of the razor edit to commit. It's currently dark like that because I've got my primary vocal soloed. Let's unsolo the vocals and start to work on this vocal warp part. And before we play that back, one thing that I failed to do is remove the effects that I've got on the track, so I'll go ahead and remove those. And now we should have a proper copy of what we had on the original layer.
I'm slowing down.
One thing that's important to remember about this is this was copied from the original track without the effects. But that's fine, that's pretty much what I'd like to have here. This way I can create my own effects. I'll turn this layer up a bit. Now since I'm playing off the phrase slowing down, I'd like for this to be slower than the original. There's a couple of different ways we can achieve this. I can double click on the item to open up the item properties, and we can see here that I have an option for playback rate, and there's also the option to preserve pitch when changing rate. Let's say for example I wanted to play this at about 90% speed. I can change the playback rate to 0.90 and hit enter, and we can see the playback rate has changed. Let's take a listen now.
I'm slowing down.
We can try that same thing again and uncheck the preserve pitch when changing rate, and let's see how that sounds.
I'm slowing down.
That wasn't a very drastic effect because I'm only playing it back at 90%. I'm going to undo that a few times and get us back to our original. And now we've got this back at 100%. And we'll close out of item properties, and let's try this a different way. What I'd like to do is hold down Alt on my keyboard and grab the right edge and drag to the right. As you can see, the play rate is changing, but this should also be changing my pitch a bit. Let's try that.
I'm slowing down.
And hearing that in context with the original vocal,
I'm slowing down.
Need to turn that up a bit.
I'm I'm slowing down.
Hello? All right, that was a little awkward. I had a phone call from an HVAC company and left the camera recording the whole time. I've totally lost my train of thought, so let's see if we can figure out where we left off. Looks like I've got the play rate of our duplicate down to about 80%. I'll turn the item up a bit so we can hear it better, and let's take a listen to what we've got.
I'm slowing down.
I like the speed of that. That part is fine, but I do think that I want the pitch to change. Now, we can accomplish that in a couple of different ways. I can add a pitch plug into the track and automate that, or I can add a pitch plug into the item itself and automate that. There's pluses and minuses to doing this either way. When you create automation directly on an item, the automation lanes are written on top of the item. It's a little bit difficult to explain, so let me show you. I'll go back into my item properties, and we can see that I can add take effects. What that does is it places the effect directly on the item instead of on the track. I'll click Take Effects, and let's look for Reapitch. Let's unsolo my primary vocal so that we can listen just to our warped effect. And let's take this down a few semitones.
I'm slowing down.
That's getting a bit closer to what we'd like, but ideally I'd like to have that change over time. I'll restore that back to 0 semitones, and let's try that again with cents instead of semitones.
I'm slowing down.
Try that again.
I'm slowing down.
Let's try full range and see how that sounds.
I'm slowing down.
That sounds a lot more like what I'm looking for. I'll return that back to center, and since this is my last touch parameter, I can now click on Param, and underneath last touch you can see that I've got Shift Full Range and Show Media Item Take Envelope, or Envelope. We've had that discussion before. Next, if we take a look over at our item properties, you can see there's a button here for Take Envelopes. If I click that, underneath Reapitch, Shift Full Range is both visible and armed. I'll switch my automation mode to touch, and you can see that our track has changed to indicate that this track is now in touch automation mode. What this means is when I play back the track, any parameter that is armed for recording automation will write that automation as I touch or move the controls. We'll play back through this section and we'll write the automation by adjusting the Shift Full Range slider in real time.
I'm slowing down.
And as we can see, the automation has been written there. Now I'd like to return my automation mode back to trim read to make sure that I don't accidentally write any further automation. We can do that as we did previously by clicking on the Take Envelopes button in the Media Items properties, or we can click down here on the track where we can see that the track is in touch automation mode. I can right-click that and switch back to trim read mode. As we play this back, that automation will be honored. Let's take a listen.
I'm slowing down.
I'll play that back again, and if you notice in the Reapitch dialog, the Shift Full Range slider is following that automation. I know that you could hear that, but we can see it as well.
I'm slowing down.
That seems to work pretty well. Let's hear that in context.
I'm slowing down.
Could probably use a bit of a volume boost there. Let's try that again.
I'm slowing down.
That's pretty close to what we had before, but we could still take that a step further. I'd like to automate the panning on this as well. We can do that through the take envelopes like we did with the pitch, but let's take a look at how to do that at the track level. On my track, I'll click the trim button, and let's bring up a pan envelope. The pan envelope is now visible and armed, and I'll make that a bit taller so we can see it. And let's create an automation item. I'll hold Alt on the keyboard, and left-click and drag along the envelope, and once I release, I've got my pan envelope. Now, if I'd like for this to pan from left to right, I can take the left edge and drag that up to the top, and take the right edge and drag that down to the bottom. Let's take a listen.
I'm slowing down.
Now, one thing that's interesting about automation items is you can also add low-frequency oscillators to them. If I double-click the pan envelope, and let's restore this back to its original position before proceeding, now I can add an LFO shape of triangle, and this will now start at the center, go to the left, go back to center, go to the right, and go back to center. Let's take a listen and see how this sounds.
I'm slowing down.
If we want to alter this, we can change the phase, which essentially changes the starting point. That'll move it 25% forward, so we're now starting on the right side to center, to left, to center, and back to the right. Let's take a listen.
I'm slowing down. Everything.
I like the sound of that, so let's leave that in place. Now, one more thing we can do to make this a bit more interesting is add a bit of a delay. So let's go to our effects and search for delay. And let's try JS delay with tempo ping pong. Now, the delay slider on this, when moved all the way to the left, will sync with the tempo. I'd like for it to be a bit more irregular, so let's move this to the right a bit. That moves pretty quickly. Let's take that back down a bit further. And let's try about 52 milliseconds and see how this sounds. I'll solo it so we can hear it clearly.
I'm slowing down.
I'm not hearing the wet quite as much as I'd like to. Let's turn it up a bit further.
I'm slowing down.
A little bit further.
I'm slowing down.
Let's try that out in context.
Things are getting faster. I'm slowing down. Everything is heavy.
I think I like that. It's really subtle, but small things like this can really help to bring a production to life. You don't have to have expensive plugins to make things sound interesting. Simple things like automating pan and pitch and even EQ can really help to accentuate the parts that you want to bring focus to. If you've got ideas for other built-in effects and things that you can use as sweeteners in your projects, leave a comment below. And totally unrelated, but if you're interested in learning more about drum editing, be sure to check out my drum editing and Reaper course on Pro Mix Academy. I hope this helps. If you like the content you're seeing, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And you can support the channel further by clicking the Buy Me a Coffee, I've got a lovely bunch of coconuts, doodly-doo, Patreon link, or Super Thanks button below. Visit us on Discord and engage with other Reaper users. We'll see you next time.
Got